Hey friends, it's a nice fall day here in New York, and to start off our video tutorial series on Fusion 360, we're going to go ahead and make a bicycle seat. It's going to be very basic for beginners, so let's get started. The inspiration for this project is a new bike that my son received for his birthday. He's 5 years old, and the seat is just too high, so I'm going to make a replacement seat that's super low profile. I couldn't fix the old one, so a brand new seat it is. 3D printed, so I'll be taking that into consideration in the design. So the first step and thing I'm going to do is I modeled up the bicycle frame itself. I used some rough measurements and I'll go through the steps here, but this isn't the tutorial part. The tutorial will be actually building the seat itself. The first thing I did was extrude a cylinder, starting with sketching a circle. Next I sketched a profile line and another circle, and then did a sweep to pull a tube, the top tube out. After that was a shell command, which cores out the inside to a certain thickness. I just chose 1.5 millimeters for this. And the last step was to make a second component, which was a seat clamp. I wanted to do that, so I made sure in my seat when I'm designing it that I leave that extra room underneath. And I may end up taking the seat clamp off when I install the new seat, but we'll see how it works out. So here's the bicycle frame mock-up. It's not the entire bicycle frame because that's not necessary to actually build it. Going forward, I'm going to right click on the assembly up here. You can see where it says activate component, and for the seat clamp it's not activated. If you click that circle, it will activate it and you can now work on that part. If you right click on the assembly, select new component, you'll see that it's already activated, and now I'm going to click in and change the name to seat and get started. So the first thing I want to do is go up and turn off the little light bulb symbol to kind of clear out my workspace, and then I'm going to turn on my origin by clicking the light bulb, and I'm going to start with a seat post that goes down through the seat tube. And so I click the S command, and then I'm allowed to search for what I'm trying to do, which is make a circle. Click the center point, type in 25 millimeters, and this stop sketch button up here allows me to automatically rotate back to where I was, and now it's time to do the extrude. So I push S to get this model toolbox back up, and I start typing in. You're going to need to learn these vocab words, the different model features, but that was a pull. So in other software it's called extrude. And so I quickly pushed enter and it kind of sent me out, so I'm going back down below and clicking on my feature, and now I can change the options for it. I did symmetric extrusion up and down around the plane that I started, and you can see if you do half length or full length, it simply just takes the length that you typed in and it decides if that's the full length or the half length. So I've set it arbitrary length. All of the features that I'm making, I'm going to go back through and measure the bike and measure this seat and get things dialed in nicely, but for this tutorial let's just go through the steps. So I push the S command again, and this time I type in plane because I actually need the seat to be on a different plane than just our standard XYZ planes. And so I'm going to select this axis, and now I can pull this plane at an angle and set it. I'm setting it at 20 degrees. Push OK. And now I can make a sketch on this plane and sketch the exterior of the seat so that I can extrude it and pull it up. I'm going to turn back on the frame here so I can kind of check my angle, and that looks about right. And turn that back off. Now I push the S command and I typed in create sketch. Another way you can do it is type in line, and that will automatically start sketching. So first thing to do when you make a sketch is select the plane. So I selected my new plane, and it made the view perpendicular to that. And now I'm just arbitrarily making lines that are attached, the general shape of the seat that I want, just a very rough shape, and connecting them. Nothing symmetric yet, and that'll be the next step. So now the next thing to do would be set the dimensions, and you can just simply click D for dimension and start clicking points. So I'm going to do this horizontal dimension. Set it at 150 millimeters. And these are just rough dimensions to kind of get started. Later I can go back in the bottom left of the screen, double click the sketch, and change these dimensions based on what the actual seat needs to be. 300 for the vertical dimension, and now you see that my seat post is not directly in the center of my seat, and so I need to bring this seat sketch over onto the center. And so if I hover over this line, you saw the triangle, that's kind of the midpoint symbol. I click there, and then now I'm going to make this vertical, and it will snap right vertical. And now you see if I pull this point, because it's not constrained, it's not stuck in one place, the shape changes. And so I'd like to also center that top horizontal line, so I'll click in the center here and then go look for that triangle and snap to point, snap to it, select the line, and go over and make this vertical. Where is that? Horizontal vertical. And so now we're centered left to right, and I don't necessarily want my seat centered forward and back. I want a certain dimension for it. So the next thing to do, well, first I want to make these lines construction lines, and I'll do that so that later when I click the sketch, it can automatically extrude without getting confused and between the difference of the outer boundary and those lines in the inside. So now I'll make the offset for front to back on the seat, or in this view up and down, and click finish sketch. I'm going to try to turn this around here so I can see it better. It's a little hard to rotate it if you do it with the shift command, the shift button and the center mouse button, but if you go ahead and on that top right and click those planes, you can kind of drag around. It's a little easier. So I clicked S again and did another pull or extrude, and this time I'm just pulling it straight up to get the bulk of my seat. And look what happened. It accidentally made it a cut instead of an extrude, so I went down to the bottom left and double click to go back in and edit. And now I can hit that drop down and change it so that it's another body. So going back, turning on the seat clamp, seat post clamp, and the frame. I'm going to activate the main assembly. Kind of click anywhere in the screen, and you can see that my seat is overlapping on that front bar. That's actually how I want it, because I want to bolt it to the front bar. It's going to be so low that it needs to touch right on that front bar, and I'm going to make a cutout in the seat, and I'll do that in the next video. So radius would be the term used in other softwares. You can also use the word fillet. That's what they're using here in Fusion 360. So we're going to round off this seat so it's not quite so sharp when my son's sitting on it. And keep in mind, I'm going to upholster the seat after, put some foam on top. So it doesn't have to be perfectly contoured. I can do some of that contouring with the foam. I'm just trying to make a solid base that he can sit on. So I selected that edge and set a radius, 25 millimeters, just as a starting point. And to select multiple lines, you hold the command key. I want to get all the edges as well. You'll see it kind of flips back between an automatic preview. But there, we've got a nice shape going. Spin this around. Select the other edges. So the next thing I want to do is go up here and right click, Go to appearance. We're going to add some color to the seat just to distinguish it from the other components. I'll be scrolling down here to plastic, looking in this folder. Opaque just means a solid color. We'll choose green for now and drag it onto the surface. Close. Okay, so we have a green seat, and now I can easily see the difference between the frame and the seat. And you see if I turn this box up here on the right, it actually makes it quite easy to manipulate the view of the model. And one thing to note is I'm going to push S to get this model toolbox back up and put a shell command in here just to try something here. So I click this bottom surface and type in a thickness, and you see that shelled out the inside of my seat. I would do that if I wanted to save material. The 3D printer itself is going to make a matrix of material in there, and I don't want to add my own support structure in there. I had fun showing you guys a little bit about Fusion 360 today, so let's continue, and I'm looking forward to the next video.